Right, so hey guys, and welcome back to another Python tutorial. So this tutorial is going to pretty much bring an end to the college management system using Python. So in this tutorial what we're going to be doing is coding up the student login function and pretty much coding up the student options. So in this system the student will be allowed to view the attendance sheet that the teacher marks for him or her, and also download a copy of it if he likes or she likes as a text file. So in the previous tutorials we coded the rest of this college management system, which was coding up an admin section and a teacher section. So if you have missed out on those, I'd recommend watching those. Link to part 1 and part 2 will be in the description. So now that we know that, without further ado, let's go ahead and open up Visual Studio Code. So now that I've got this open, what I'm going to go ahead and do is open my file in here, college system. Now this is the code we had last time. So in here we have our teacher session and our admin session. Now let's go down to our main function, which is right here. As you see, that's the main function, and we have our auth teacher and authorize admin functions in place. Now the last function left is authorize student. So whenever the user selects option number 1, we're going to run an authorization for the students. So authorize and student. Cool. So now we don't actually have this function coded up, so obviously Visual Studio Code is going to complain with a red squiggly line. So let's go ahead and code that function. I'm going to go up and let's just do it here. So define authorize student and let's start. So I'm going to print a blank line first of all. Then I'm going to print students login, and then once again another blank line. Now I'm going to ask the user for the username and password. So username, not a capital U, username equals input string, and then let's ask them for the username. So this is so that the student can type in their username. I'm going to copy and paste this line, and I'm going to change the username to a password, and I'm going to change the inside of it to password text as well. Cool. So now that we've gathered the username and password from the student, let's go ahead and add these username and password variables into a query values variable so that it can nicely be put into our query later on. So now we have a command handler object, which is pretty much holding our MySQL login details and the connection to our database. So we're going to use that command handler and then call the execute method on it and then execute a query. So we're going to do select username from users. So we have a users table which pretty much stores our teachers and our students. So we are saying select username from our users table, where username equals, we're going to use a string formatter, so %s, and password equals %s, which is a string formatter again, and lastly privilege equals string formatter again. Now since we already have these values saved into our query values variable, we're going to use a speech mark here to close the query down. Oops, the speech mark goes here, the query is complete, and then we pass in our query values. Cool. So now just to explain to you guys what's going on, I'm going to open up the database to show you the structure. So what you want to do is actually make sure that you have XAMPP control panel installed so you can host your MySQL database. This is why I recommend watching part 1 and part 2. So make sure you have that installed, so XAMPP control panel, and then when you type in XAMPP control it should just pop up. I've already got it pinned to my toolbar down here, so I'm going to go ahead and open that up, and let's start my Apache and MySQL service so that I can actually go ahead and interact with my database. So let's go on to my admin section of my MySQL database so that I can show you stuff in a more graphical manner instead of running queries manually from Python. So I have a college database right here, and as I said before, we have a users table. So in the query I wrote, where we are verifying whether the student exists on the system or not, I said select everything, where the username equals the username field in here, password equals password field, and then privilege is student. Now if any record with those, with whatever is being entered by the student matches any of these records, it will return that record, and that means the login is success. So let's go ahead and code that bit. So what we want to do is, before doing that, we want to do we want to hold the username of this person that's logging in. So we already have the username. So we're going to do username equals command handler.fetch 1, because obviously it's going to be just one result. We're not going to have multiple people with the same username. So username equals command handler.fetch 1, which means pretty much fetch the username that's being selected. And then what we want to do next is say if command handler.row count, which means what row count does is it pretty much just lets us know how many rows or results are being returned from our query. So if the row count is less or equal to 0, which means there were no results, and we print invalid login details, else, which means if the row count is more than 1, which means there was a result that was returned, we're going to start a student session, which is going to be a function we create in a moment, and we need to pass in the username of the student. Okay, so what we've done here is just created a dummy function which is going to be created in a moment called student session, and we've passed in the username. So let's go ahead and code up our student session function. So I'm going to go up here, and just after our admin session, or just before our admin session, let's code up our student session function, and we're going to require username as a parameter here. Cool. Now what we want to do for this is we're going to print our menu first. So we're going to be in a loop, and then we're going to print a menu. So print speech marks print. First option is going to be view register, so that the student can view a register. Then we're going to do second option as download register, just in case they want a copy of it. And then the last option is of course going to be logout. Cool. So pretty simple and basic. And then what we want to do is gather their input. So user option is equals to input string, and then let's just type an option in there. Cool. So now what we want to do is if user option equals 1, they have to view the register. So we're going to need a query in here. So first of all, before we start, what we want to do is store the username into the username variable and rewrite it. So username equals, and then put brackets, string, username. Now this is because when we pass in values into our query, we need to have multiple ones. So we need to just use a comma here just to kind of trick it, otherwise it's going to give us an error. So, and then give that username. Cool. So query values is going to be used as this username variable right here. So we've used that instead of query values. Cool. Now let's run our command handler and execute our query. So what we want to do is select star. Oh wait, actually we want to select specific things. So let me open my attendance database that we created in the last tutorial right here. So the attendance table allows the teachers to pretty much mark attendance for all the users which are students on the database. So as you see, this is our register for the 21st of August, which was, I believe, yesterday. Yep, it was yesterday. For the 21st of August, we have our records right here for the students. Now the student needs to be able to view this record. And they need to be able to only view their own record and not the record for other students. So we're going to have to filter that based on their username. So they should only be able to view their register and not other students' register, because that's kind of privacy. And we're only going to be selecting their username, date and status. We don't really need the ID field. So that's why we're going to say select date, username. Did I spell that right? Yes, I did. And status from our attendance table. Where, now we need to filter again, where the username, where the username field of the table is equal to a string formatter. Now we pass in the value, which is username. Now it will take whatever username is returned from the student authorizer function and then put it in here. So whichever username this student is logged in, is only going to be able to view that register and not the other students. Now we need to capture all the information into a variable called records equals that to command handler.fetch all, so that we're fetching all the records. And then we need a for loop to display these records. So for record in records, we're going to print each record. Cool, that should do the trick. Now let's go ahead and run this so far, because we've done quite a bit, and let's see if that works. So now the student should be able to pretty much log in. So let's try and log in as a student. first of all, I'm going to give it rubbish information. So, and what's happened? It says tuple index out of range during the. What? This is pretty weird. Let me see. Command handler, select username from username and password privilege. Let's take a look at the query. Seems like there's been an error in our query for the student authorization. So let's take a look at that. Authorize student. Now what we're doing is we're selecting the username, of course, from users. So select username from users, where username equals string formatter and password equals string formatter and privilege equals string formatter, and then we're passing in the query values. Very weird. Let's try and figure out why it's doing that. Okay, so the issue is I've written username and password in here, obviously, but now we've also got a third string formatter right here, which I forgot to type in into query values, which is privilege. So let's go ahead and complete that. So I put another comma in here, and we need to do the privilege is obviously going to be student because we're looking for student accounts, not teacher accounts. Cool, this time it should work. So let's run this. And as you see right here, we typed in invalid information, and quite rightfully it says invalid login details. Now I'm going to go on my database and check for one of the student accounts because I can't remember it on the top of my head. So one of the student accounts, okay, all of these have pretty gibberish passwords, so I'm going to just copy and paste. We're going to be using Josh as an example of student logging in. So since he's already registered, let's click on one again, and then we're going to do Josh, and then let's paste in the password. Cool. So as you see right here, the login was success, and it says view register, download register, or log out. Obviously we also need to do a students menu kind of thing up there, but we'll do that in a moment. Now let's click on view register, and okay, nothing happens. Let's see why that is. So let's go to our student session. One. Okay, user option equals input string option. If user option equals 1, then we do this. Pretty weird. So I'm gonna also give it a title right here quickly. So print students menu, and then let's just print another blank line in there. So that should do that. For some reason it wasn't really recognizing our commands though. So user option equals 1 seems correct. Let's run this. Also I'm gonna do a little print in here that says displaying register. Let's run this. Let's log in as a student. So I'm gonna do Josh, and the password is that. And now it says student menu, view register, and it says displaying register. Now, why is it not actually showing any registers would be the question. So let's go ahead and check why that is. So let's go into our attendance and see if Josh actually has any record. Okay, so quite rightfully he does. So why is our query not displaying it? So let's go ahead and check our query. So let's see. We have our username being displayed, which is as a string, which is fine. Then we have select date, username status from attendance, where username equals we have this percentage and s, and then we have our username. Then we have records equals command handler.fetch all, and then for record in records print record. I don't really see the error, but let's go through it again. So command handler.execute, select date, username, status from attendance. Okay, I've spelled that right. Where username equals percentage s. Pretty weird. So I'm gonna try and print out the username that's being passed in here, just to make sure that it's the correct username. So let's print out username, print username, and let's run this now. Debugging can sometimes be a headache. So Josh, paste, and what is the username that we get? View register. Okay, it says Josh and then it says a comma. That's probably why. So it has all of this rubbish in there as well. So we don't need any of this stuff, which is why we're going to have to replace this. So it returns me with everything that we don't need as well. So what we're going to do is actually go back to our authorize student function right here. And what we want to do here is, instead of passing through this right here, username equals command handler.fetch1, we're just going to pass in the username that the user enters. Now, obviously, the username is only going to be passed in if the user has logged in successfully, so that's fine. Let's get rid of line 132. Sorry about that, guys. So let's get rid of that. And now, hopefully, things should work out just fine. So let's go to my student session up here, and let's run it now. Option 1 for login as student, and then I'm gonna Josh paste. What? Okay, I see. So login as student, Josh, and I need to copy Josh's password again. What was it? ASDFLJ. What a weird choice for me to add as a password. And let's click on 1. And perfect, it is working. So as you see, it says displaying register for Josh, and it's on the 21st of August 2020. Josh was absent. Cool. So that's working fine. I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of my print statement for the name. So where is it? Right here. So I'm gonna get rid of that. So that's one of our functions completed. So it is now displaying registers. If the teacher went ahead and marked another register, for example, let me just prove my point. So let's log in as a teacher. So if I log in as a teacher, the teacher logs in, so he types in username, password, and then if the teacher wants to mark a register for the 22nd of August 2020, and then it can mark a status for present, absent, or late for Matthew, so present, and present. So it seems like everyone was present. Let's go ahead and log out, and now let's log in as a student. So Josh, and wow, I forgot to copy it again, it seems like. So Josh and ASDFL, I think it was. No, it wasn't. So I'm gonna go back in here, ASDFLJ. Cool. So login 1, Josh, ASDFLJ. Cool, and we're going to view register. Now as you see right here, we have 2 records because the teacher just marked the register for 22nd of August. So no matter how the teacher updates the registers, we're always going to have the up-to-date list over here, which is pretty cool. Now let's work on our downloading register function. So to do so, what we're going to do is actually go ahead and program our elif function right here. So elif statement. So elif user option equals 2, which means the user wants to download the register. We print downloading register, and then what we want to do is we're pretty much going to be copying and pasting a lot of stuff. So we want to copy and paste the username and the whole command handler.execute as well, and we also need to, so pretty much we're going to need everything from here. So copy and paste everything from line 57 to line 61. So grabbing the username, running the query, and also printing it as a loop. I'm going to paste that down here. Now the query is going to remain the same, obviously. Also we're going to fetch all the results, and we're also going to be in a loop. Now when we're in the loop, we're not going to be printing the records, but we're actually going to be opening a file, which is going to be a text file called register.txt or txt, comma w, and then we're going to be opening that as f, so we can use f to refer to it. So, and then each time there's a new record, we're going to write the record, so str record, we're going to write that to our file, and then we're going to do a new line character as well. And then lastly, when this file has completely been written and the loop ends, we're going to do file.close. Then we're going to print all records saved. Cool. So all records saved, which is fine. Now what we're going to do is go ahead and run this program. And let's see, login as student. And my student login is Josh. Oh, I typed in the wrong one. Josh ASD FLJ. Okay, login not recognized. ASDFLJ. Why did that not work? Oh, teacher's login, I see. Press 1. Josh ASDFLJ. Cool, now we're going to download the register. And as you see, it says downloading register and it says all records saved. So let's go ahead and check if it actually saved. There's no text file over here, but I'm pretty sure it's usually saving it into the location for Visual Studio Code. So what I can do is go ahead and set the location for where I want to save this file. So let's just do, let's find out the location for my desktop. Go into here, for example, go into properties, just copy and paste this entire thing. So I'm going to copy the directory of where I want it to be saved and paste it right here. And then we just put another / in there. So we have to change the slashes to / instead of backslash, otherwise it's going to complain. It's pretty annoying, but that's fine. Oops, that's fine. And now let's run this again. Login as student, Josh ASDFLJ, and we want to download our register. It says all records saved. Let's go ahead and check. Now we have a register.txt file. Let's hope that all the records are in there as well. So as you see right here, it says the record for one of the, it only says one of the records for some reason. Let's go ahead and figure out why it does that. So let's close this off. And okay, so instead of record, what we want to do is type in records in here. So change that from record to records, and then we're just going to run this right here, and then login as student, Josh ASDFLJ, download register. It's downloaded. Let's go ahead and check it now. And as you see right here, we have all the records now as a little list. So he can view the register for 21st and he can view the register for 22nd. Now last but not the least, we want to code up our function for the logout. So what we want to do is pretty easily just do another elif user option equals 3. We are going to break from our main loop and break from the second loop and go into our main loop. So that should sort that out as a logout, and then else we print no valid option was selected. Cool. Let's run this up to see if the logout works. So login as student, Josh ASDFLJ, and we're gonna log out, and it does work. So it returns us back to our main menu. Now let's try and add some gibberish as we log in. So Josh ASDFLJ gibberish, and it says no valid option was selected. Cool. So that brings an end to the creating a college system using Python, guys. Hope you have thoroughly enjoyed this informative tutorial and made something fruitful out of it. You can use this knowledge to create your own system GUI as well. If you guys would like a GUI version of this, do drop it down in the comments. I might be making that in the future as well. If you would like to donate to the channel directly, you can do so by becoming a patron using my Patreon page, which will be linked in the description. You guys could also purchase a super chat emoji or a highlighted message when this video premieres. Also guys, thank you for all the support that you guys have been showing me recently. I am very grateful for all of it. If you guys would like to drop any new ideas, you can do that in the community tab. Do consider following up the socials and joining the Discord channel for a load of fun. And I'll see your beautiful faces in the next tutorial. Peace!